Okay, so we are ready for our next talk. We all know that building design systems can be a bit of a journey. Some people might call it an odyssey. Do you know what? I'm so good at these segues. I'm just like, where am I getting it from? It's almost like it was right there in front of me. So speaking about odysseys, some of them might be unexpected. So Vincent is going to come on stage and he's going to tell us all about it. Please, join us. Big applause. Hopefully, when I press this button, your thing should take off. Look, it's working.
Wow.
I know.
Hi everyone, so my name is Vincent Manzoni. I'm a product designer at Société Générale investment banking since 2020. And I've specialized in design systems for about 3 years. If you've watched the previous editions of DSL, and I'm glad to be here at the first Parisian edition, you probably saw some of the people I'm working with. We had Morgan Peng on why we are not doing design system properly, and that's okay. And we also had Henry Daggett on how to survive design systems. They shared some great insights on the whole strategy, the mindset for design system. But now I'm going to zoom in a little bit and add more to their stories by talking about my unexpected odyssey of building a money input. And I think there will be some echoes with the Ledger team and their presentation as well. So to bring you through this journey, I'll try to show you what were the challenges and also the lessons I learned along the way. And well, this story happened after my first year when I joined the Design System Council. Basically, our council is 4 designers and a developer, and beside the usual work we are doing on projects, we focus on improving the design system and make it evolve. And when I joined, our design system was already pretty strong. It's based on Bootstrap. We have web components, so there is not really room to create new components. And even if we had a few ideas in our backlog, some things for more really specific needs, projects were not asking for them, and we had other priorities. Until one day, a request came in from one of the big projects we have to create an amount input component. And here, it's not just only about creating something new and releasing it. It's a component that is already widely used in our services. So our main goal was also to aim to replace the existing components, the ones that were custom made, with something standardized with more features that could benefit to everyone. And for me on paper, it was just a number and a box around it. So I agreed to add it to my scope and I started to do the study. And that's where the thing started, because as every design project, you probably know that, but it starts with a whirlpool of requirements. And there were some signs that I may have overlooked. This is a real screenshot from the requests. But to be honest, at this time, I was just like, okay, I've heard this. Developers are just being a bit dramatic. They were not. They were not. And yeah, so I started and I went with all of the requirements we had. And first things first, I benchmarked what was already existing in our services. I just took 2 examples to show you the variety of use cases we have in the bank. But basically, here we have a service for external clients. We need a big input, minimalist, simple. And at the top, we have something for the more advanced users. And here they need something compact. There are some hidden features and yeah, a bit more things. And after doing this study, I found 3 main features I had to work on. The first one was to have a readable display to improve it. The second thing was adding features for the currency and the number positions, and also some keyboard shortcuts. But we'll get into the details. And let's start with the number. So when you write a large number like this, if you just use the raw number, it can be a bit complex to read it at a glance. And basic principle of psychology is just to split things by chunk, smaller chunks, and then you probably know it, but we have that with the conventions, spaces, dots, commas, all of those things that are here to separate the units and the decimals. And this first problem was actually having some dependencies because those formattings, they depend on where you're located, on the language of the page, or even in some specific business contexts. So yeah, this time I started to see what I was going to go through, but hopefully we had actually one developer that told us, oh yeah, there is an already existing function that handled that. You just gave it a raw number, a location, and even a currency, and then it returns the string with the right format. Easy peasy. And here, as the Ledger team said, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. If there are no solutions in design, reach out developers and try to see someone probably already solved this problem. Second thing was about the currency number and the position, because I took some examples here from the different services, and you can see that sometimes the currency is on the left, sometimes it's on the right, sometimes we don't need to display the currency. And for example, also, same thing with the numbers. If we are in a table, we want all of the units aligned, and for that, we need to push the number to the right. Again, nothing complex here. We just created 2 new features. Okay, bit of accessibility problem, so refer to the screen to the sides. But we created a property for the currency position and one for the number position. And here, one thing important is that we try to be consistent with the previous components we have in our design system and the way where they already work. As I said before, we are based on Bootstrap, and in their latest V5 version, they actually made a few changes on the wording. Instead of using left and right to position margin and everything, they use start and end. And this is actually interesting because it's good for internationalization on the pages and for languages where you read from right to left instead of left to right. This will have an influence on it. So yeah, be consistent in your design system. Third thing was keyboard shortcuts. This one is like the cherry on the cake for the component, because it's not something that you advertise or that is directly visible when you design, when you do use or design the component. But it was already implemented in a few services. It's actually a standard in finance, and we just decided to reuse it. And basically, instead of having to type the zeros and count the number of times you need to add them, you just hit K, M, or B, and it will add the corresponding number of zeros. So again, as well, one feature that was already developed in one project can now benefit to all of the projects. And yeah, I did my component on Figma. I tested it in some prototypes. I reviewed the features with the Design System Council. And I thought I was almost done. But at this moment, there were some new things that appeared that I called the Kraken of complexity. Because, yes, when we are designing on Figma or any design tool, we are actually limited to the things that are visual or, yeah. So when you need to create specifications that you will handle to developers to create the components, you will need to answer a lot more questions. The behavior, the interactions, the default state, and everything. I'm not going through all of those questions, but just to give you a quick summary of the fun things that happened. Yeah, we had fun with naming conventions, because for the currencies, they are actually the full name, they have the symbols, they have 3-letter code. So should we embed that in our component? or just left it to the projects and designers to decide what they want to use. The decimals also got more exciting because depending on the currency, there are actually some standard number of decimals. Usually it's 2, but some have known and some have 3. And the last thing was also about the currency selection. In some projects, they actually wanted the user to be able to switch currencies easily. And we had this question, should we add this in the amount input component? But we finally decided to split it and have another component, a currency selector, but that's another story. So yeah, I tried to answer all of those questions. I was navigating in the dark waters. But at this point, I also realized something. We are not only designing for the end users, the one that will just enter the amount in the input. We're also working with the designers and the developers. They will actually use it, and we really need to think about the user experience of getting a component, understand what it can do, and then implement it in the project. Just to show you how it looked at this moment, for the design, so the 3 first properties are something that is shared on all of our inputs, pretty basic. And then we have things specific to our amount input. We can decide to show or not a value, otherwise it will be a placeholder or just nothing. We have a text slot for just to add the value. Same thing for the currency. And again, we took the currency and value position as well. And when you try to do that in code, there will be some limits. We'll try to stick as much as possible to what we did in Figma, but there are sometimes, and here it's what happened. For example, you can see that there are 2 currency properties. The first one is to get the right formatting, and the second one is actually to let projects just use whatever they want, if they want to use a symbol or another thing to name and to have the label next to the amount. There are also some things that you cannot add in Figma, things like the locale or the number of maximum decimals. And here, one thing we did before going to the code was we actually released the first version of the components on Figma, a beta version, just for our designer team, so they can test it and give us some feedback on it. So before finalizing the implementation, we could already see if there were some things to change. Yeah. That was it. After 3 months of hard work, we finally released the components. And yeah, I was relieved. I think that was time to celebrate. But as you can see, there is still something in the map. And I'm sure you already know what's it, but it's not the end when you build the components. It's actually just the start. What you really want is the component to be adopted and used in your project. And so, well, we released it, we communicated in our release notes with the design team, and they also told that to their projects. So slowly but surely, people started using it. And after, we had a fleet of tickets incoming. Because, yeah, it's only the first step when you release something, and we had a lot of questions of bug raised and even some conflicting things between the projects. But here, that's where you need to stay focused, because if you're not answering to those questions or bug issues, you will lose people and they will probably just use the custom ones they made. And you will not have the right adoption of your components. So that's why at the end we tackled all of those one by one. We tried to give some estimates and the deadlines for each of the new features that will be released. And we finally had something like this, with new properties added. We had, again, more fun with the decimals displayed, and other features to more specific projects. But is it really the end? Yeah, probably not, because as I was working on this talk, we actually did a refactor of the component to React first. And it was also a good sign, because people were using it, and it was one of the first components we added in the React first. So that was a sign it was good. And just to give you some quick takeaways from this journey, well, the first one is try to be realistic and beware of small components, just the text on a box. It's usually not just this, and it hides a lot of complexity. Second thing is, remember that you're not sailing alone. And yeah, the collaboration is key, because with the developers and with the designers, you will probably find a lot more and iterate better to find the final solution. And last but not least, manage your energy. I think I was really motivated. I wanted to prove something when I started to build this component. So I did a lot on the first iteration before releasing. But the real game is really after the release, and if you can adapt and make your component fit to all of the services that will try to use it. So yes. And finally, if there is someone that is asking you to make a component in a week, well, you can just share with them an article that will be released. I think it's released now on Medium. We also have great articles as well, but this one with more details on how it went and on this journey. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Vincent. I can confirm that this is live, because I just saw the post on LinkedIn, and so there you go. Things are happening in the DSL ecosystem. Oh, watch out! I never should have said that. Things are happening. Wow. I'm glad he finished the talk. So, you know, there's always a positive. Do you have any questions for Vincent and his Odyssey? No questions. Very clear. In that case, I have a question for you. So somebody mentioned earlier about measuring. This is obviously, metrics is always interesting. How do we measure adoption? How do you measure adoption across design, or well, actually the components, but you know, across the different disciplines?
Yeah, great question. So actually, we have two things to measure. We can measure it on Figma, and for that, I think that there are some statistics. You can see which components are used on which project, and even if they are detached, and that probably means that designers are doing some things or some tweaks to the component, so there is probably something missing. That's one of the first things, and that's what we usually monitor when we release the component in beta and Figma. And then when the component is developed, we also add analytics on the usage for the different services. So we usually just monitor as well how it's used, which features are used in the different projects.
Let's see if this one works. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. I've got another question here on the Slido. What are the main differences between the Figma properties and the web component ones?
Okay. Well, on Figma, we're for sure focusing on the visuals, how it looks like. There were things like the locale on the number of decimals that do not really matter, and you don't want to create too many variants on Figma that we'll have to maintain and change and adapt. So you can try to be and just stick to the things that will impact the visual and that will be useful for designers, because they will know how they can tweak it and change it to fit their needs. But then, we also do some trainings when we release new component to the team, so they can understand how it works in code and all of that.
Excellent, thank you. Oh, we have a question. It's live from the audience. Love it. Very faithful questions over here.
Still going back to your question, to your answer. How do you document that? The fact that it's not inside the Figma component, but there are some properties that exist and they need to be documented somewhere.
Actually, in our official documentation, we stick to the code, I would say, the real components. And for Figma, I think it's mainly, we don't have that part on the documentation, so it's mainly just with the team, we're advertising the new component, showing what it could be done with it. But otherwise, it's not in the documentation. We'll only have the developed part and the real component.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We are going to move on. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Big round of applause. Oh, thank you.